Excuse me, officer. I'm here for the Stevens custody hearing. Could you point me to the right seat?
The cop looked at her. A black woman in a simple blouse. He snorted. Custody hearing? Let me guess. Another welfare case fighting over a kid you can't afford to raise? She said nothing. He stepped closer. You people always think you deserve something. Sit in the back. This isn't the place for your kind to be seen. A man in a suit chuckled. Two clerks exchanged glances. Someone whispered, "She probably doesn't even have a lawyer." No one defended her. No one even looked her in the eye. But none of them knew what this black woman had done in Afghanistan. None of them knew what one punch from her could do. And in less than 3 hours, that cop would be lying unconscious on the courtroom floor. Courtroom 4B was buried in the basement of the Harrison County Courthouse, small-town Virginia, the kind of place where the same families had held power for generations, where everyone knew everyone's business, and where a black woman from out of town was automatically treated like a suspect. The room smelled like old wood and older secrets. Dark oak panels lined the walls, stained by decades of fluorescent light. An American flag hung limply in the corner, slightly crooked, like someone had bumped it years ago and no one had bothered to fix it since. The ceiling lights buzzed overhead, that constant, irritating hum that crawled under your skin and stayed there. The benches were hard, unforgiving, designed to make you uncomfortable, to remind you that this was not a place of comfort. This was a place of judgment. Imani Stevens walked down the center aisle. Her footsteps were silent on the worn carpet. She found a seat in the second row and lowered herself into it without a word. She had spent 2 hours that morning choosing her outfit. A modest cream-colored blouse, simple gold earrings that her mother had given her for her 30th birthday. No makeup, no jewelry that might flash or draw attention. She wanted to look like a mother, soft, approachable, non-threatening, not a soldier, not a weapon. Her hands rested in her lap, folded, still. The kind of stillness that didn't come naturally. The kind you had to train into your body over years. The kind that came from learning to control every muscle, every breath, every impulse. A thin scar ran along her right forearm, faded now but still visible if you knew where to look. She touched it sometimes without realizing. A habit, a reminder. That scar was from Kandahar, from the night a roadside bomb turned a routine patrol into chaos. From the moment she threw herself over a fellow Marine and felt the shrapnel tear through her arm instead of his chest. But no one in this courtroom knew that story. No one here knew any of her stories. To them, she was just another black woman, another case number, another problem to be processed and dismissed. 2 rows behind her, Eleanor Washington sat with her granddaughter. Imani's mother was 68 years old. Her hair was silver now, pulled back in a neat bun. Her eyes were sharp, alert. The eyes of a woman who had survived Jim Crow, raised 3 children alone, and buried a husband who came home from Vietnam in a box. She had seen things, survived things, and she recognized danger when she saw it. Little Zoe sat pressed against her grandmother's side. 6 years old, bright eyes, curious mind. She wore her favorite yellow dress, the one with the sunflowers that Imani had bought her for Easter. Every few minutes, Zoe would turn around in her seat, looking for her mother, making sure she was still there. And every time, Imani would catch her eye and give her the same small nod. "I'm here, baby. I'm not going anywhere." Officer Derek Malone stood by the side door like he owned the place. The same cop from the entrance. Tall, 6'2" at least. Broad shoulders. His uniform was crisp. His badge polished to a mirror shine. His hand rested on his belt, fingers brushing the handle of his baton. He surveyed the room with the lazy confidence of a man who had never been questioned, never been challenged, never faced consequences for anything in his entire life. His eyes moved across the gallery, cataloging, judging, dismissing. When they landed on Imani, they lingered. His lip curled slightly. Then he looked away, like she wasn't worth his attention. The main door opened. An elderly white woman shuffled in, struggling with an oversized purse. Malone's entire demeanor transformed. His face softened. He smiled warmly and stepped forward. "Right this way, ma'am. Let me help you with that." He took her bag, guided her to a seat near the front, even pulled the bench out for her. "You just let me know if you need anything else." The woman patted his arm. "Such a nice young man." 2 minutes later, a young black man approached the same door. Mid-20s, neat clothes, clean-shaven. He stepped forward politely, waiting for direction. Malone's smile vanished. He moved to block the path. "ID. Now. Slowly." The young man reached for his wallet. Carefully. Deliberately. He'd clearly done this before. Knew the drill. Knew that any sudden movement could be interpreted as aggression. Malone snatched the ID from his hand, examined it like he was looking for a forgery, turned it over, held it up to the light, made the young man wait, and wait, and wait. Finally, he thrust it back. "Back row. Don't cause any trouble." The young man took his ID and walked away without a word. His shoulders were tight, his jaw clenched. But he didn't protest, didn't complain. He knew better. Imani watched the whole thing. Her jaw tightened. Her right hand curled slightly on her knee. Instinct, muscle memory. 12 years of combat training firing in her blood. She forced her fingers to relax. Not here. Not now. Focus on Zoe. The clerk called a name. A Latina woman in a floral dress stood and approached the bench. Malone intercepted her, stepped too close, put his hand on the small of her back, guiding her forward. The woman flinched, pulled away slightly. Her discomfort was obvious. Malone didn't remove his hand. Instead, he smirked, leaned in close, and said something only she could hear. Her face reddened. She walked faster. Imani's feet shifted. Flat on the floor now, shoulders squaring. The posture of someone who knew exactly how to move, exactly how to strike, and was actively choosing not to. Her right fist clenched, then released. The side door opened again. Terrence Brooks walked in like he owned the courthouse. Italian suit, silk tie, a watch that cost more than most people's cars. His shoes clicked against the floor with each confident step. He was handsome. Always had been. That was part of the problem. That easy smile. Those warm eyes that could make you believe anything. Make you doubt yourself. Make you think you were the crazy one. He scanned the room. Found Imani. Their eyes met. He smiled. That same smile. The one he wore when he told her no one would ever believe her. The one from the night she finally left, clutching Zoe against her chest. A bruise blooming under her eye. Terrence walked over to Malone. They clasped hands, pulled each other into a half-hug, backslapping, laughing, old friends. Of course they knew each other. Eleanor leaned down to Zoe. Her voice was a whisper. "Don't look at him, baby. Look at Grandma." Zoe buried her face in Eleanor's cardigan. Her small body trembled. Imani saw it. That tremble. That fear. Her daughter, afraid of her own father. Is this what I fought for? 3 tours in Afghanistan, 17 commendations, a Bronze Star, a Purple Heart. And I have to sit here and beg a court to let me keep my own child, while a cop looks at me like I'm garbage, while my ex-husband smirks at me like he's already won. Her hand formed a fist again. She opened it. Not yet. "Stevens versus Brooks. Matter of custody." The clerk's voice echoed through the courtroom. Flat. Bored. Like she'd said these words 1,000 times before and would say them 1,000 times again. Imani stood, smoothed her blouse, walked to the front of the courtroom. Every step was measured, controlled. The walk of someone who had marched across deserts, through enemy territory, under fire. Someone who knew that panic was death and calm was survival. Malone watched her pass. His eyes tracked her like a predator watching prey. His hand moved to his belt again, resting, waiting. Judge Harold Williams sat behind the bench. Early 60s, gray hair thinning on top, wire-rimmed glasses perched on a nose that had been broken at least once. He looked tired, bored, like he had already decided how this case would end and was just going through the motions. He barely glanced at Imani, but when Terrence stood, the judge straightened slightly, nodded in recognition. They knew each other. Golf buddies, probably. Country club acquaintances. Two men from the same world, speaking the same language. Terrence's lawyer was a shark in a $3,000 suit. He stood beside his client, legal pad ready, fountain pen gleaming. Imani had no lawyer, couldn't afford one. She would represent herself, speak for herself, fight for her daughter with nothing but the truth. Terrence spoke first. Of course he did. He stood at the plaintiff's table, hands clasped in front of him. Humble, reasonable, the picture of a concerned father. Your Honor, I love my daughter more than anything in this world. I want what's best for her. That's all I've ever wanted. He paused, took a breath, let his voice catch slightly. But Imani, she came back from the military different, angry, volatile. I've seen her lose control, Your Honor, seen her break things, scream at our daughter. I'm genuinely concerned for Zoe's safety. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a handkerchief, dabbed at his eyes. The judge nodded sympathetically. That must be very difficult, Mr. Brooks. It is, Your Honor, it truly is. I just want to protect my little girl. Imani's nails dug into her palms. She wanted to scream, wanted to tell them about the real Terrence, the one who punched walls inches from her head, who tracked her phone, who isolated her from everyone she loved, who made her feel crazy for being afraid in her own home. But screaming wouldn't help. It would only prove his point. Stay calm, stay controlled, for Zoe. Ms. Stevens, your response. Imani stood. Her voice was steady, factual, each word chosen carefully. Your Honor, I served my country for 12 years. I completed 3 combat tours in Afghanistan. I received the Bronze Star and the Purple Heart. After my return, I voluntarily completed treatment for adjustment disorder. Every psychological evaluation since then has cleared me. I am Zoe's mother. I have been her primary caregiver since the day she was born. I am not a threat to my own child. She paused, met the judge's eyes. I'm asking the court to see the truth, not the story my ex-husband wants you to believe. Malone stepped forward before the judge could respond. Your Honor, if I may. Judge Williams looked up. Officer Malone, I feel I should note something for the record. Malone's voice was loud, confident. This woman was hostile from the moment she entered this courthouse. Wouldn't follow simple instructions. I had to tell her twice to sit down. Aggressive body language, confrontational attitude. He paused, let the words sink in. I've made a detailed note of it for the court's consideration. Imani turned to look at him. She didn't speak. Her right hand stayed flat on the table in front of her, open, still. Her eyes said everything. I know what you're doing, and you have no idea what you're playing with. Malone felt her gaze. It made him uncomfortable. Made him feel, for just a moment, like maybe he wasn't the one in control. He didn't like that feeling, so he pushed harder. These military types, Your Honor, and I say this with all due respect, they come back from overseas thinking rules don't apply to them. I've seen it before. The 1,000-yard stare, the hair-trigger temper, the violence simmering just beneath the surface. He shook his head sadly. These are the kind of people who solve problems with their fists. Not with words, not with reason, with violence. From the gallery, Eleanor muttered, just loud enough for the people around her to hear. He doesn't know who he's talking to. He has no idea what one punch from my daughter can do. A woman nearby frowned, curious, but said nothing. Judge Williams sighed heavily. Officer Malone, please keep your observations relevant to the case at hand. But he didn't strike the comments from the record, didn't reprimand Malone, didn't acknowledge the blatant bias. The words hung in the air, poisoning everything. Terrence caught Imani's eye across the courtroom. He smirked. That same smirk. The one that said, I told you, no one will ever believe you. You're nothing. And I've already won. Mommy looks sad. Zoe's small voice carried through the quiet room. Eleanor quickly pulled her closer, shushing her gently. But Imani heard, and it broke something inside her. Judge Williams announced a 15-minute recess. Imani walked into the hallway. She needed space, air, distance from the man she had once loved and the cop who seemed determined to destroy her. She stood by a window, looked out at the parking lot, tried to breathe. Footsteps behind her. Heavy, deliberate. She knew who it was before she turned around. Malone. He stood too close, deliberately invading her space. His breath was hot on her face, coffee and something sour. You know, he said quietly, your ex-husband told me some interesting things about you. The nightmares, the screaming in the middle of the night, the way you scare that little girl. He tilted his head. What kind of mother does that to her own child? Imani's voice was flat, emotionless. He's my ex-husband, and you need to step back. Malone laughed. The sound echoed off the marble walls. Or what? You gonna military me? He made air quotes with his fingers. Throw a punch? Go ahead. Please. He gestured to the body camera on his chest. It's all on tape, sweetheart. You touch me, and I'll have you arrested so fast your head will spin. You'll lose your kid, your freedom, everything. He reached out, flicked her lapel with 2 fingers, dismissive, invasive. That's what I thought. All that big bad Marine training, and you're just gonna stand there and take it. He leaned closer. His voice dropped to a whisper. Guess you're not as tough as you pretend to be. 3 people stood in the hallway. They saw everything. They said nothing. Imani's fist clenched. Her knuckles went white. Every muscle in her body screamed at her to move, to strike, to end this with one clean punch. Distance, angle. 1 punch to the jaw. That's all it would take. 1 punch. She breathed, forced her fingers to relax. No, not yet. Not like this. Zoe is watching. Zoe is always watching. Malone saw her restraint, mistook it for weakness. His grin widened. Yeah, that's what I thought. Run back to your little custody hearing, sweetheart. It's almost over anyway. Court reconvened. Imani returned to her seat. Her hands were steady, but her heart was pounding. The encounter in the hallway had shaken her more than she wanted to admit, not because she was afraid of Malone, but because she had come so close to hitting him, and she knew what 1 punch from her could do. Eleanor caught her eye from the gallery, a question in her gaze. What happened out there? Are you okay? Imani gave a small shake of her head. Not now, Mom. Not yet. Her right hand rested on her knee. The fingers curled slightly. Ready. Judge Williams took his seat, shuffled some papers, cleared his throat. I'm going to take a 1-hour recess to review the documentation in this case more thoroughly. He peered over his glasses at Imani. Given the concerns raised today, I want to ensure we're making the right decision for the child. 1 hour. The words hit Imani like a physical blow. She understood what that meant. The judge was taking Terrence's accusations seriously. Malone's observations had worked. 60 minutes. That's how long she had. 60 minutes before a decision that could take her daughter away forever. One wrong move, one punch thrown in anger, and she would lose everything. People began filing out for the recess. Imani stood, gathered her things, started toward the exit. Malone positioned himself by the door, waiting for her, a spider in its web. As she passed, he spoke, low, just for her.
1 hour, sweetheart. Then your kid goes home with her real parent. He smiled. Must be hard, knowing there's nothing you can do about it. Nothing your fists can change. Imani stopped, turned, looked directly into his eyes. When she spoke, her voice was quiet, controlled, and somehow more dangerous than a shout. If you ever speak about my daughter again, if you even look in her direction, you and I are going to have a problem. And you won't like how I solve problems. Malone's grin flickered. For just a moment, something like uncertainty crossed his face. Then it was gone, replaced by arrogance. Is that a threat? In a courthouse? With all these witnesses? He laughed, loud, heads turned. Please, go ahead, throw a punch. Give me a reason. He tapped his body camera. It's all being recorded. You touch me, you lose everything. Your kid, your freedom, or your whole pathetic life. I don't need to touch you, Imani said. The truth will be enough. Malone laughed again, even louder this time, playing to the audience. The truth? Honey, I am the truth in this building. I've been keeping order in this courthouse for 15 years. Ask anyone. He leaned closer. And the truth is, you're just another angry black woman who can't control herself. Go ahead. Prove me right. Eleanor appeared at Imani's side. Her hand closed around her daughter's arm. Come, let's get some air. She guided Imani toward the exit, away from Malone, away from the confrontation that was seconds away from exploding. But as they walked, Eleanor leaned close. Her whisper was urgent. I made a call. Colonel Patterson is coming. Imani's eyes widened, the first crack in her composure all day. Mom, you didn't. I did. That cop needs to know exactly who raised you, who trained you. Eleanor's voice hardened. And exactly what one punch from you can do. Say it. They pushed through the courthouse doors into the afternoon sunlight. 1 hour. In 1 hour, Derek Malone would learn a lesson he would never forget. A lesson about respect, about consequences, about the very dangerous mistake of raising his hand toward a Marine's child. 1 punch. That's all it would take. The afternoon sun was warm on Imani's face, a small mercy in a day full of cruelty. She sat on a wooden bench outside the courthouse. The paint was peeling. The slats were weathered, but it felt solid beneath her. Real. Something to anchor herself to. Zoe ran across the courthouse lawn, chasing a yellow butterfly. Her laughter floated through the air like music, like the world wasn't crumbling around them, like this was just another ordinary day. Eleanor sat beside her daughter. Neither spoke for a long moment. Then Zoe tripped. She stumbled over a crack in the sidewalk and went down hard. Her knee scraped against the concrete. Blood welled up, bright red against dark skin. She didn't cry. Instead, she looked at her mother first. Checking. Waiting. Her eyes asking permission. Is it okay to cry, Mommy? Is it safe? Something cracked inside Imani's chest. She learned that from me. My 6-year-old daughter learned not to cry because she watched me hide my pain. She learned to check first, to make sure it was safe to feel. Imani walked over, knelt down in the grass, pulled her daughter close. "It's okay to cry, baby," she whispered. "It's okay." Zoe's lip trembled. Then the tears came. Big, gulping sobs that shook her whole body. She clung to her mother like Imani was the only solid thing in the universe. "I was scared, Mommy. That man was mean to you." "I know, baby, I know." "Why was he so mean?" Imani didn't have an answer. How do you explain hatred to a 6-year-old? How do you explain that some people look at the color of your skin and decide you're less than human? "Some people are just angry," she said finally, "and they take it out on others. But that's not your fault, and it's not my fault either." She held Zoe until the tears slowed, wiped her face with a tissue from her purse, kissed her forehead. "Now go catch that butterfly, okay? Mommy needs to talk to Grandma." Zoe sniffled, nodded, ran back toward the grass, the scrape on her knee already forgotten. Eleanor watched her go. Then she turned to her daughter. "You're thinking about him, aren't you? Terrence?" Imani didn't answer, but her silence was answer enough. She had met Terrence Brooks when she was 21 years old, fresh out of boot camp, young and naive and so desperate to prove herself. He was older, sophisticated, charming in a way that made her feel special, chosen. He said all the right things, made all the right moves. He wasn't intimidated by her strength, by the fact that she could outfight most men in her unit. He said he admired it. She believed him. They married fast. Too fast. Her mother warned her. Her sergeant warned her. But she was young and in love and certain she knew better. Zoe came a year later, the happiest day of Imani's life, holding that tiny, perfect baby in her arms, promising her a better life, a safe life. And then things changed. The charm became control. The attention became surveillance. Terrence started monitoring her phone calls, questioning her friendships, demanding to know where she was every minute of every day. He never hit her. He was too smart for that. Too careful. Instead, he punched walls. Inches from her head. Threw dishes that shattered at her feet. Screamed until Zoe learned to hide in closets with her hands over her ears. And when Imani finally fought back, one night, one shove when he cornered her in the kitchen, he called the police. He showed them the scratch on his cheek, the scratch from her fingernail as she pushed him away from her. "She's violent," he told them. "It's the PTSD. I'm afraid for my daughter." She was arrested, handcuffed in her own kitchen, in front of Zoe. Her 6-year-old daughter watched her mother get led away in handcuffs. The charges were dropped. No evidence, no injury. But the arrest record remained, and Terrence filed for custody the next day. Unstable mother, history of domestic violence, military-related psychological issues. Her own service record, the thing she was most proud of, weaponized against her. But Terrence never knew the whole truth. The police report never mentioned it. And no one in that courthouse understood. Imani had spent 6 years teaching close-quarters combat to Marines. She had trained over 400 military police officers in hand-to-hand fighting. She had sparring records that showed she could knock out men twice her size, one punch. That's all it ever took. The night she shoved Terrence, she could have killed him, could have shattered his jaw with a single strike, could have ended him right there in their kitchen. She chose the shove, because she knew exactly what one punch from her could do, and she didn't want to become the monster he was trying to make her. Eleanor's voice pulled her back to the present. "You know why you're going to win today?" Imani looked at her mother. "I don't know if I am, Mom." "Because that little girl has never seen you lose control, not once, in all these years, all the things Terrence did, all the times he pushed you." Eleanor reached over and took her hand. "That cop is going to try to make you lose control today. He's going to push you until you throw a punch.
And you're not going to, because she's watching. Imani looked at Zoe, still chasing butterflies, still innocent, still believing her mother could protect her from anything.
The only way I throw that punch, Imani said quietly, is if someone tries to hurt her. And then God help them. Because one punch is all I'll need. A car pulled into the parking lot. Black sedan, government plates. A man stepped out. Tall, black, silver hair. 60s, but still powerful. Still commanding. Colonel James Patterson. He wore his full-dress uniform. The eagles on his collar gleamed in the sunlight. Rows of ribbons covered his chest. A lifetime of service. A lifetime of sacrifice. He walked toward them with the steady gait of a man who had commanded thousands, who had sent men and women into combat and welcomed them home again. Imani stood. They didn't hug, didn't salute. He simply looked at her with those piercing eyes and said, "I read your complete service file to the judge's clerk. All of it. All of it. Bronze Star, Purple Heart, 3 combat tours, the hostage extractions, the night she carried a wounded Marine 2 miles through enemy territory while taking fire, the training records showing she could end any fight with one punch." Patterson's voice softened, just slightly. "I vouched for you, Imani. Don't make me regret it." Then, even softer, "But if that cop slaps you, if he raises his hand toward your child, you have my permission to remind him exactly what a Marine's punch feels like." The hour was up. Imani walked back into courtroom 4B. The gallery was packed now. Word had spread through the courthouse. People had come to watch, to witness. Standing room only. Colonel Patterson entered behind her. Full dress uniform, medals gleaming. Every eye in the room turned to watch him. He walked down the center aisle like he was reviewing troops, back straight, chin high, the weight of authority in every step. He took a seat in the front row. The room went silent. Judge Williams noticed first. His eyes widened slightly at the sight of the uniform. The eagles. The ribbons. He straightened in his chair. Malone noticed next. His eyes locked on Patterson's collar insignia, on the Silver Star ribbon, on the rows of campaign medals. For the first time all day, something shifted in his face. Uncertainty. He straightened his own posture, tugged at his uniform. Suddenly aware of how ordinary he looked next to a man who had commanded Marines in combat. His hand moved to his belt. Instinct, like he was expecting trouble. Judge Williams cleared his throat. "I have reviewed the additional documentation submitted during the recess, including the complete service record and character references for Ms. Stevens." He paused, looked at the papers in front of him. "I must say the information is substantial." Terrence's smile flickered, faltered. He stood quickly. "Your Honor, with respect, whatever they submitted, this is a custody hearing, not a military tribunal. Her job doesn't make her a good mother. The court should focus on, Your Honor." Patterson's voice cut through the room like a blade. He didn't shout, didn't raise his voice, but somehow it silenced everything. He stood. "Permission to address the court." The judge blinked, looked at the uniform, the medals, the quiet power radiating from this man. He nodded. "Granted, Colonel." Patterson walked to the front. His shoes clicked against the floor. Every eye followed him. "Sergeant First Class Imani Stevens served under my command for 4 years. During that time, she received the Bronze Star for valor under fire, specifically for saving 3 lives during an ambush in Kandahar province." He let the words settle. "She received the Purple Heart for wounds sustained while protecting a fellow Marine from an IED blast. The scar on her arm is from shrapnel she took so a 19-year-old private wouldn't take it in his chest." The courtroom was silent. Absolutely silent. In 12 years of service, Sergeant Stevens has never, not once, lost her composure under pressure. She has the ability to end any fight with a single punch. I have personally witnessed this. I have also witnessed her walk away from confrontations she could have won in seconds. He turned, looked directly at Malone. If she made a threat to anyone in this building, officer, I would strongly suggest examining what was done to provoke it. The judge turned to Malone. His expression had changed, hardened. Officer Malone, did you provoke Ms. Stevens in any way? Malone was sweating now, visibly, his confidence cracking. No, Your Honor, absolutely not. I was completely professional. A woman in the gallery stood up, middle-aged, nervous but resolute. That's not true. Every head turned. I was in the hallway during the recess, she said. I saw what happened. He called her sweetheart. He called her honey. He touched her clothes. He told her she would lose her daughter. Her voice strengthened. He dared her to throw a punch. His exact words. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. The young black man from earlier stood up too. He made me wait 10 minutes for an ID check this morning. But the white lady walked right in. He didn't even ask for her name. Another voice. I saw him put his hand on a woman's back. She looked scared. And another. He laughed when she asked for directions. Called her your kind. The crowd was turning, the Greek chorus finding its voice. Malone's carefully constructed facade was crumbling in real time. His face went red, dark red. His hands clenched at his sides. This is... Your Honor, these people are lying. Officer Malone. The judge's voice was ice. Step back, now. Terrence grabbed Malone's arm, pulled him close, whispered something urgent in his ear, desperate. Malone's jaw tightened. His eyes found Imani. A decision formed behind them. Something reckless, dangerous. If he was going down, she was going down with him. He just needed her to throw the first punch, on camera, in front of witnesses. Then none of this would matter. He started walking, toward Imani, slow, deliberate. The gallery parted before him. No one wanted to be in his path. In the second row, Eleanor pulled Zoe close. Don't look, baby. But Zoe was already looking, already watching the cop walk toward her mother. Grandma? Why is that man going to Mommy? Imani saw him coming. Her breathing slowed, deep, controlled. Her feet shifted, flat on the floor, grounded. Her fists hung at her sides, loose, ready. She didn't look scared. She looked like exactly what she was, a combat veteran who had faced worse than this, who had walked through fire and come out the other side. Malone stopped, inches from her face, so close she could smell the coffee on his breath, the sweat of desperation. His voice was low, venomous, meant only for her. You think your fancy medals mean something? Your military friends? Your little decorations? He leaned even closer. You're still just another. He didn't finish the sentence. His hand came up, open palm, fast. He slapped her across the face. The sound cracked through the courtroom like a gunshot, like a starting pistol, like the beginning of the end. Time stopped. Judge Williams half rose from his chair. Patterson's eyes narrowed to slits. Eleanor's hand flew to cover Zoe's face, but too late. A red mark bloomed across Imani's cheek, bright against dark skin. She didn't move, didn't retaliate. Her fist clenched. Every muscle in her body screamed at her to strike, to end this. One punch. That's all it would take. She forced her fingers open. Not yet. Not like this. She looked at Malone, met his eyes. Her voice was steady, quiet, and somehow more terrifying than any scream. You get one. I don't throw the first punch. Malone grinned, the grin of a man who thought he had finally won. He turned toward the gallery, toward Eleanor, toward Zoe. "You want your mommy, little girl? Come here." He raised his hand, reaching toward Zoe, not to hit, to beckon, to taunt, to use a child as a weapon against her mother. But his hand was raised, moving toward her daughter. The daughter Imani had promised to protect. The daughter she would die for. The daughter she would kill for. Zoe's scream pierced the silence. "Mommy!" The scream cut through everything, through the shock, through the silence, through years of training and discipline and holding back. "Mommy!" Imani's eyes tracked from Malone's raised hand to her daughter's terrified face. That face, those eyes, filled with fear, because a man was reaching for her. Again. The promise echoed in her mind. Her own voice, her own vow. "The only way I throw that punch is if someone tries to hurt her." What happened next took less than 1 second. But for everyone in that courtroom, it lasted forever. Imani moved. No wind-up, no warning, no hesitation. Her right fist came up from her side in a perfect arc. 12 years of Marine combat training, 6 years of teaching hand-to-hand combat, thousands of hours of drilling the same motion until it was as natural as breathing. One punch, straight to Malone's jaw, the same punch that had ended dozens of sparring matches, the same punch that had dropped men twice her size, the same punch she had held back for hours, for years, for her entire adult life. The impact was sharp, precise, final, a sound like a hammer hitting meat. Malone's head snapped back, his eyes rolled white, his body went rigid for a fraction of a second and then loose, completely loose. His legs buckled. He dropped straight down, like someone had cut his strings, like a puppet with no one holding the controls. He was unconscious before he hit the floor. One punch, lights out. The courtroom went absolutely still. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3, the cop lay on the floor, out cold, not moving, his body camera still recording, capturing everything. A black woman stood over him, her fist still clenched, her breathing controlled, her eyes clear. She looked down at her knuckles, then at the silent room. When she spoke, her voice was quiet, calm, meant for everyone and no one. "I told him, you don't raise your hand toward my child." She unclenched her fist. "One punch. That's all it takes." The spell broke. Zoe tore free from Eleanor's grip. She ran down the aisle, her yellow dress flying behind her, her small feet pounding against the floor. "Mommy!" Imani dropped to her knees, caught her daughter, pulled her close. "It's okay, baby. It's okay. Mommy's here. Mommy's always here." Zoe buried her face in her mother's chest, sobbing, clinging. Imani held her, rocked her gently, the way she had when Zoe was a baby and the world was simpler. No one moved to help Malone. The judge stared, frozen behind his bench. Colonel Patterson nodded once, slowly. Respect. Terrence had gone white. His hands gripped the table like he might collapse without it. Then the clapping started. One person, the young black man near the back. Slow, deliberate. Then the woman who had spoken up. Then another, and another. Within seconds, half the courtroom was applauding. Judge Williams banged his gavel. "Order! Order in the court!" But his voice had no conviction. He didn't call for Imani's arrest. He didn't call for medical attention for Malone. He just watched, like everyone else. Derek Malone groaned. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused, confused. He tried to sit up and immediately winced. His hand went to his jaw, swelling. Already. 2 officers helped him into a sitting position. He blinked, looked around, tried to remember where he was, what had happened. His eyes found Imani. She was still kneeling on the floor,
still holding Zoe, still exactly where she had been when she knocked him out, with one punch. Something had changed in his face. The arrogance was gone, the swagger, the certainty that he was untouchable. All of it. Gone. Knocked out of him. An officer approached, bent down, spoke quietly. "Sir, your body camera recorded everything." Malone's face went gray. He knew what was on that recording. The slap. His hand raised toward a child, his words, and then one punch. Lights out. All of it. Documented. Undeniable. Career-ending. Terrence stood, tried to salvage something from the wreckage. "Your Honor, I'd like to request—" "Sit down, Mr. Brooks." Judge Williams's voice left no room for argument, no room for negotiation, no room for the comfortable arrangements they had made on golf courses and at country club dinners. "Sit down. Now." Terrence sat. The judge took a long breath. When he spoke, his voice was different, harder, like something had shifted in him too. "In light of what I have personally witnessed in my courtroom today and the documentation provided during the recess, I am making my ruling." He looked at Imani, really looked at her, for the first time all day. Full custody is awarded to Imani Stevens, effective immediately. The words hung in the air. Beautiful. Final. "Furthermore, I am referring Officer Malone to internal affairs for conduct unbecoming of a law enforcement officer. He assaulted a woman in my courtroom. He raised his hand toward a child. The consequences of his actions are entirely on him, not on the woman who defended her daughter." The judge paused, turned to Colonel Patterson. "Colonel, for the official record, would you please tell this court exactly who Sergeant Stevens is?" Patterson rose, straightened his uniform, walked to the front of the courtroom one last time. "Sergeant First Class Imani Stevens is a Bronze Star recipient, a Purple Heart recipient. She completed 3 combat tours in Afghanistan. She has trained over 400 military police officers in close quarters combat." He paused. Let the next words carry their full weight. "She is, by official certification, one of the most skilled hand-to-hand fighters in the United States Marine Corps. She can knock out any person in this room with a single punch." He looked at Malone, still on the floor, still holding his jaw, still trying to understand what had happened to him. The fact that Officer Malone is conscious and breathing right now, that is Sergeant Stevens showing mercy. She could have killed him with that punch. She chose not to. The implication landed. Gasps, murmurs. People looking at Imani with new eyes, understanding, finally, what they had witnessed. A woman who could have ended a man's life, who chose instead to simply end the threat. One punch to knock him out, not to kill him. Mercy. Malone struggled to his feet. His hand never left his swollen jaw. When he spoke, his voice was hoarse, broken. Nothing like the confident bully from hours before. I have a daughter." The words hung in the air. "She's 6, same age as—" He couldn't finish, couldn't look at Zoe. Imani stood, lifted her daughter onto her hip, looked at the man who had tried to destroy her. For a long moment she said nothing. Then you should know better. Every daughter deserves to feel safe, even from cops, even from men with badges, even from their own fathers." The words hit Malone like a second punch. His eyes glistened. He turned to the judge, his voice cracked. "Your Honor, I was wrong. I let my bias, my prejudice, affect my judgment. I slapped a woman in open court. I raised my hand toward a child." He swallowed. "There is no excuse. None." He turned to Imani. "I'm sorry. What I did was—" He struggled. "It was unforgivable. I know that. But I'm sorry." Imani nodded slowly.
not forgiveness. Acknowledgement. Get help, she said. For your daughter's sake. Don't let her see the man I saw today. Don't let her grow up afraid of you. Zoe tugged at her mother's sleeve, looked up at Malone with those dark, intelligent eyes. You were mean to my mommy. Malone's breath caught. She only needed one punch, Zoe added. Matter of fact, like she was explaining the weather. Malone crouched down, eye level with the little girl, tears streaming down his face now. You're right. I was mean. Very mean. He wiped his eyes. And your mommy? Your mommy is the strongest person I've ever met. One punch. I'll never forget it. For the rest of my life. He stood, walked toward the exit. Broken. Changed. Terrence tried to slip out behind him. A hand caught his shoulder. Colonel Patterson. We're not done with you, Mr. Brooks. The judge has some questions about your relationship with Officer Malone, and about certain inconsistencies in your testimony today. Terrence's lawyer was already packing his briefcase, already heading for the door, abandoning his client. I'm sure there's been some misunderstanding, Terrence started. Save it for the investigation, Patterson said. Eleanor walked down the aisle, slowly, her eyes never leaving her daughter. She reached Imani, took her face in her weathered hands. I knew it, she said. I always knew. My baby girl. Strongest woman I ever raised. She smiled through tears. One punch. That's all you needed. One punch, and it's over. She kissed Imani's forehead. The courtroom was emptying now, but slowly, reluctantly. People didn't want to leave. They had witnessed something rare, something they would tell their children about. The day a cop slapped a black woman in court and learned what happens when you raise your hand toward a Marine's child. Imani carried Zoe out of the courthouse and into the fading afternoon light. The sun was setting, orange and gold painted across the sky. Beautiful, peaceful. Like the world was starting over, Zoe rested her head on her mother's shoulder. Mommy? Yes, baby? Are you a superhero? Imani smiled. The first real smile in months, maybe years. No, baby. I'm not a superhero. She kissed Zoe's forehead. I'm just a mom. And moms protect their kids, no matter what. She shifted Zoe on her hip, started walking toward their car. Even if it only takes one punch. Derek Malone resigned from the force 3 weeks later. He couldn't look at his own daughter without remembering. The sound of impact, the floor rushing up, the face of a woman who could have killed him, and chose not to. One punch. That's all it took to change everything. He started therapy, started the long, hard work of becoming someone his daughter wouldn't have to fear. Whether he would succeed, only time would tell. But he was trying. Terrence Brooks wasn't as lucky. The investigation into his relationship with Malone revealed a pattern of collusion. Favors exchanged. Records altered. A conspiracy to take the child from her mother. His lawyer dropped him. His country club friends stopped calling. His custody claim was permanently dismissed. He lost everything. Everything except the chance to look in the mirror and ask himself how he had become such a monster. And Imani Stevens? She rented a small space in downtown Richmond, bought some secondhand equipment, posted flyers at shelters and churches and community centers. She opened a self-defense class for single mothers, taught them how to stand their ground, how to protect their children, how to find strength they didn't know they had. She called it one punch, because sometimes that's all you need. The class met every Saturday morning. The women who walked through those doors came from everywhere, different backgrounds, different stories, different scars, but they all had one thing in common. Someone had tried to break them, and they had refused to stay broken.
On the wall behind the training mats hung a framed photograph. Imani in her dress blues, bronze star pinned to her chest, Zoe in her arms, both of them smiling. Below it, a simple plaque with 3 words, "Protect what matters," because that's what Imani Stevens had done. In a small-town courthouse in Virginia, against a system that was designed to crush her. A cop slapped a black female Marine in court. He raised his hand toward her child, and she knocked him out with 1 punch. Not because she was angry, not because she wanted revenge, but because that's what mothers do. They protect their children, no matter the cost. 1 punch. That's all it takes.